Hello and welcome. I frequently report on the insufferable illegality of government ignoring its constitutional mandate to respond to the majority will of the people and honour repeat and insistent demands to cease and desist the criminal insanity of fracking. The same blanket rejection of water fluoridation is equally insisted upon by a knowledgeable, fully informed public majority. Regrettably, however, the obsequious corporate shills who make up government, or more accurately the criminal corporation trading as government, continue to unlawfully refuse a mandatory obligation to enact into law the prevailing will of the people. This is unmitigated fascism. It is tyranny. Once again, I've raised this imperative issue with my WA state and federal parliamentary so-called representatives, and as per usual, my genuine concerns are contemptuously ignored. This open disregard for the rule of law verifies beyond all reasonable doubt that the total absence of authentic political representation is undeniable. Alternative media routinely exposes our entire electoral process as nothing more than a poorly disguised con job, with all major political parties being assorted masks of differing colours on the same criminal face. No matter which of these dancing bear puppet parties gets elected, nothing of significance ever changes. In fact, the two-party system is deviously designed to fracture and divide the voting public so as to have them waste energy squabbling over issues that forever remain inconsequential to a carefully hidden agenda. The purely cosmetic window dressing of opposing parties come and go, but the deadly, covert agenda progresses unhindered. Instead of parliamentary representatives implementing promised improvements, all working, living and economic conditions get progressively worse. This is by calculated design. In fairness, I doubt many fully understand the depth and extent of the convoluted sham they inexorably sink up to their lying back teeth in. Generally, they're inspired by a sincere desire to effect change for the better, but all noble intentions evaporate as they get sucked ever deeper into the party machinations that are exclusively geared towards self-preservation at the eternal expense of everything else. The very term people's representative becomes a cruel hoax, because their perverted purpose and their pathetically flaccid accomplishments end up the opposite of what they promise. Hence, universal derision at the term politician's promise. Once enmeshed into the business-as-usual parliamentary pattern, they quickly learn to either follow orders without question or find another job. Usually unfit and middle-aged, their negligible job prospects, weighed against a grossly overgenerous taxpayer-funded pension, acts like the slippery lubricant carnivorous plants use to entrap their prey. Like hapless insects attracted to the bright colours and heady scent, they soon become devoured by the digestive process of the party machine. Some may earnestly desire a way out, but few ever muster what it takes to break free. The lure of financial security, underscored by the titillating ego massage of public recognition, becomes all too compelling. The swift and permanent penalties for opposing the party line too severe. Is it so surprising then that we have no genuine representation whatsoever? Pantomime parliamentarians put on a sleazy show of pretending that the voice of the people has meaning in their shabby world of rampant corruption and limitless fraud. It has none, not even as an afterthought. In reality, they've surrendered their souls to a force that is darker and infinitely more sinister than they know, and often never know until it's too late. Who then, if not ourselves, is responsible for this monstrous tyranny masquerading as democracy? The answer demands an honest appraisal of how this utterly ludicrous situation can possibly exist. The fact that we know politicians lie as a matter of routine, and that the public jokingly accept that deplorable circumstance, pretty much says it all. Over time, we've been expertly and meticulously conditioned, covertly brainwashed into accepting that this is just the way things are. People shrug their shoulders and bemoan there's nothing to be done, which is precisely the learned helplessness that keeps the invisible bars in place on the self-enforced prison of debt slavery. This takes place while central banks and the transnational corporations environmentally rape, plunder, and gluttonously loot the country blind. And, stupidly, we pay the elected representatives, parasites, sanctioning this crime wave handsomely for their barefaced collusion. The current level of political crime and corruption could not exist, let alone thrive, if this truly outrageous status quo were fiercely rejected by the people, as it most certainly should be. This requires that we, as a steadfast community, collectively declare resolute intolerance of lies and deceit from these political parasites. Who considers that paying professional extortionists, compulsive liars, and inveterate cheats our hard-earned cash is acceptable? Who thinks it's okay to see these fraudulent fat cats retire on million-dollar pensions of our money as a reward for a lifetime career of cunning deception, human rights oppression, and criminal duplicity? Who agrees they should continue being lavishly funded by a public they not only sell out and contemptuously ignore, but poison and oppress with deadly chemtrails, microwave radiation, ecocidal fracking, despicable water fluoridation, monstrous vaccines, and toxic GMO foods? Well, if you believe, along with a rapidly growing majority, that this wretched situation should be reversed, then maybe it's time to actually do something. Now, it's not my place to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. That's up to each and every individual themselves. But I do hope to encourage affirmative action that might galvanise a way out of this mess. Recognising this appalling state of affairs is the first step via a thorough and unconditionally objective review of all that you think you know and understand to be true. Threadbare media propaganda can no longer fool critical thinkers, but unfortunately it does provide a refuge for moral cowards not to think at all. Intense brainwashing and immersive conditioning has been inculcated to the point that very few fully grasp the festering nature of the reality that fully engulfs us. Most are aware that something is dreadfully wrong, but identifying the culprit becomes the hurdle at which most fail. The incredible scope and unfathomable depth of deception, the gargantuan scale of systemic political corruption and satanic criminality that is designed to enslave our existence and devour our creative energy is almost impossible to comprehend. It is truly horrific. But upon closer examination and earnest research, the shocking truth is revealed, usually in a flood of outrage. This response needs to be correctly managed and not deflected via the enemy's controlled opposition that infiltrates and pervades every aspect of society. Remember, they control all mainstream media, education, medicine, politics, law, and finance that nullifies routine avenues of redress. It's also important to be aware that senior police and the judiciary are a key component of control that cannot be trusted. Take, for example, the plight of courageous citizens seeking to bring justice to the high echelon monsters responsible for child sex trafficking. Instead of being provided assistance or galvanising purposeful investigations, whistleblowers are immediately set upon by an irredeemably corrupt justice system and ruthlessly attacked from every quarter. Institutionalised paedophilia is upheld and protected by the highest offices in the land, a loathsome circumstance that fully confirms everything I'm saying. In this, there is no level playing field. There never has been, and the truth is uglier than I can describe. Sly, manipulative, skillful, highly intelligent forces of control have studied us and know which buttons to push to make us behave and react to suit their evil ends. How else could they perpetuate the insanity of endless war, wherein a well-meaning shopkeeper will travel from one side of the world to brutally murder an impoverished rice farmer in a distant land for reasons he will never understand, let alone agree with? At school, we were taught conscientious objectors are cowards, but in later life, I realised that the eminently courageous few that refused to put on a military uniform were true heroes. An outstanding expose of this concentrated evil is the brilliant production All Wars Are Bankers' Wars, that clearly demonstrates the monstrous scam of manufactured endless war. Wars are evil con jobs with combatants on each side suckered into fighting and dying for invented, meaningless causes that are fabricated and emotively structured as enlistment bait. Hollywood portrays a sense of glory that has never and never will be authentically associated with wholesale mass slaughter, a fact easily confirmed by veterans whose lives are forever tarnished and often destroyed by a grotesque experience far removed from anything glorious. Joining any aspect of military service at this point in time equates to surrendering your humanity to become a willing participant in ongoing war crimes and mass murder. Glamorous recruitment advertising presents something very different, but mass murder is exactly what it is, and a mass murderer is precisely what you will become. In the same vein, enlisting police are conned into thinking they are signing up to protect and serve the community, but here again, the reality is completely different. The corrupt system convinces recruits that meaningful public service is the job, but they end up as callous enforcers of rampant property theft, banking fraud, extortion rackets, and become mercenary hoods for criminal corporations. In saying this, I infer no disrespect to well-intentioned frontline police personnel, but they themselves are the first to admit being sold out from the top down. How can a bunch of armed thugs in heavy combat gear aggressively defending the criminally insane ecocide of fracking translate to protecting and serving the public? It isn't, and it never will be. So any policeman or policewoman taking part in fracking protection, understand what you are really doing. Be aware of the appalling and irreversible consequences of your actions. You are enforcing crimes against nature and crimes against humanity with your own families, your own children, and all future generations as your defenseless victims. Knowingly or otherwise, you have become a mortal enemy of the very people you sign up to protect, and your actions will most assuredly incur serious karmic returns. When the vast extent of these innumerable atrocities becomes fully known, and be assured this is happening by the hour, demand for just reprisal will be unstoppable and could possibly see a sudden reintroduction of the death penalty. This can be avoided by facing the inevitable consequences of unquestioning service to evil and making a choice to extricate yourselves while you still can. When I last questioned a corporate policy enforcement agent masquerading as a police officer, about the legality of protecting criminal enterprise, the lame response was that the fracking company in question was not actually breaking any corporate laws. A similarly invalid response from the guards of Auschwitz failed to save them from being sentenced to death and hanged. Few will care how many of you face severe consequences for failing to honour your own humanity, refusing to protect the people against corporate crime, and abusing the sanctity of nature. If you've taken part in protecting the fracking industry while deliberately ignoring the massive, international, ever-growing body of incontestable evidence confirming what fracking is and what it unfailingly does, then you deserve nothing less. But I would sooner you confronted the stark reality of what's happening and made the moral, ethical, and most importantly, the spiritual choice to immediately disengage and find a way over to the right side of history. Your current actions are not just part of the problem, they are the problem. No job security or lifetime career is worth the price you will eventually pay. Nothing is. So please think carefully and choose wisely. Thank you for watching.